Hey, bullfrogs. All right, so it is Monday, and I'm going to start our new book, High Tide in Hawaii. This is book number 28 of the Magic Treehouse series, and we're going to start with chapter 1 today. Here we go. A ship is the title with a question mark. Jack and Annie were sitting on their porch reading books. Jack was reading about gorillas. Annie was reading about pilgrims. Suddenly, Annie closed her book. She looked up into the sunset. "Hey," Annie said with a smile. Jack looked over at her. "It's back," she said, jumping up. "Oh, man," breathed Jack. He knew she was talking about the Magic Treehouse. Annie could always tell when it was back. Jack closed his book and stood up. "We're going to the woods," he called through the screen door. "There's something we have to check on." "Be back before dark," their mom said. "We will," said Jack. He picked up his backpack. Then he and Annie got headed across the yard. When they got to the sidewalk, they started running. They ran up their street and into the Frog Creek woods. In the last light of the day, they hurried between the trees. Finally, they came to the tallest oak. They held their breath as they looked up. The Magic Treehouse was back. "Good going," said Jack. "Thanks," said Annie. She started up the ladder. Jack followed. It was nearly dark inside, but the sun-dried wood smelled like a summer day. "What kind of special magic will we look for this time?" said Jack. They glanced around the treehouse. They saw the scrolls they brought back from Shakespeare's theater. They saw the twig from the mountain gorillas and the pouch of corn seeds from the first Thanksgiving. Excuse me. "There," said Annie. She pointed to a book in the corner. A piece of paper was sticking out of it. Jack picked up the book. Then he pulled out the paper and read, "Dear Jack and Annie, good luck on your fourth journey to find a special magic. The secret rhyme will guide you. To find a special magic, build a special kind of ship that rides the waves both high and low on every kind of trip. Thank you, Morgan." Jack looked at Annie. "A ship?" he asked. She shrugged. "Yep, I guess we have to build a ship. Where do we go to build it?" She and Jack looked at the book's cover. It showed palm trees, a beach, and a beautiful ocean. The title was A Visit to Old Hawaii. "Oh, wow," said Annie. "I love Hawaii." "How do you know you love it?" Jack asked. "We've never been to Hawaii." "Well, we're going now," said Annie. She pointed at the cover. "We wish we could go there." The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2 is called Aloha. And here's the picture. I know at least one of our bullfrogs has been to Hawaii just recently. I wonder if you've been to Hawaii. I've never actually been to Hawaii. I would love to be able to go someday. Jack opened his eyes. A gentle wind brushed against his skin. It smelled sweet and fresh. Annie looked out the window. "Nice," she said. Jack looked out too. The treehouse had landed on top of a tall palm tree. The palm tree was at the edge of a flowery meadow. On one side of the meadow, a cliff dropped down to the beach and ocean. On the other side of the meadow were the rooftops of a small village. Beyond the village were tall gray mountains. Misty clouds hid their peaks. Waterfalls gushed down their sides. "I told you I loved Hawaii," said Annie. "Don't you?" "I have to learn about it first," said Jack. He pushed his glasses into place and opened their research book. He read aloud. "Hawaii is a chain of islands in the Pacific Ocean. The largest island is Hawaii, which gives its name to the whole group. The islands were formed millions of years ago by volcanoes. The volcanoes erupted under the ocean. Over time, their craters rose above the water." "Wow," said Annie. "We're on the top of a volcano." "Yeah," said Jack. He read on. The volcanic rock crumbled and turned to soil. Over millions of years, wind and birds dropped seeds on the islands. Plants and trees began to grow, and birds and insects made their homes. Cool, said Jack. He took out his notebook and pencil and wrote, "Wind and birds brought seeds." He read some more. About 2,000 years ago, people first came to Hawaii. They came in canoes from other islands in the Pacific. They rowed for thousands of miles across the ocean, guided only by the wind and stars. "Hey, listen," said Annie. Jack put down the book and listened. Sounds of music and laughter floated on the breeze. "There must be a party in that village," said Annie. "Let's go." "What about building that ship?" asked Jack. "We'll figure that out later," said Annie. "Let's meet some people at the party. Maybe they can help us." She started down the ladder. Jack heard a whoop of laughter in the distance. The party does sound fun, he thought. He packed up his things and followed Annie down to the ground. The sun was low in the sky. They walked through the meadow toward the village. Everything was bathed in a golden red glow. "Oh, man," breathed Jack. There was beauty everywhere. Purple flowers shaped like bells, white flowers that looked like stars, tall feathery ferns, green spiky plants, big orange and black butterflies, and tiny yellow birds. When they got close to the village, they saw an open area filled with people. Jack and Annie slipped behind a palm tree. They peeked out at the party. There were about 50 people, including grown-ups, teenagers, and little kids. They were all barefoot and wore wreaths of flowers around their necks. A woman was chanting. Her words rose and fell like waves. She chanted about a volcano goddess named Pele. While she chanted, other people played music. Some blew on pipes that looked like flutes. Others shook gourds that sounded like baby rattles. Some hit sticks together to make clicking sounds. Most of the villagers were dancing to their music. They stepped from side to side. They swayed their hips and waved their hands. "They're doing the hula," whispered Annie. She smiled and waved her hands too. "Don't get carried away," whispered Jack. He took out their book and found a picture of Hawaiians dancing. He read, "The early Hawaiians had no written language. They told stories with hula dancing. The hula is a blend of dancing and chanting poetry." Jack pulled out his notebook. He started a list about early Hawaii. No written language, stories with hula. Suddenly, Jack heard loud laughter and clapping. He looked up. Annie was gone. Jack peeked out from behind the tree. Annie was doing the hula with the dancers, but no one seemed surprised. Everyone just smiled at her as they kept dancing. A girl caught sight of Jack. She looked about Annie's age. She had long, shiny black hair and a big, friendly smile. "Come do the hula," she called to him. "No way," Jack breathed. He slipped behind the trees again, but the girl danced over to him and took his hand. "Join us," she said. "No thanks," said Jack. The girl didn't let go. She pulled Jack into the open. The music got louder. The dancers and musicians nodded and smiled at Jack. Jack stood still. He didn't know how to do any kind of dance, let alone the hula. He stared at the ground, clutching his backpack and notebook until the music and dancing ended. The Hawaiians gathered around Jack and Annie. They all had friendly, open faces. Here's a picture of Annie and the little girl, and she's trying to get Jack to come hula dance with them. "Who are you?" the young girl asked. "I'm Annie," said Annie. "This is my brother Jack." "I'm Kama," the girl said. "This is my brother Baka." She pointed to a boy in the crowd who looked about Jack's age. The boy stepped forward. He grinned a big grin just like his sisters. He pulled off his wreath of red fluffy flowers. He put it around Annie's neck. "A lei to welcome you," Baka said. Kama then pulled off her lei and put it around Jack's neck. Aloha, Jack and Annie, everyone said. How sweet. All right, so chapter 3 is sleepover. Aloha, said Jack and Annie. Where did you come from? A pretty woman asked. Frog, Annie started, but Jack broke in. From over the mountains, he said quickly. He pointed at the mountains looming in the distance. We are glad you have come to visit us, the woman said. Everyone smiled and nodded. They're all amazingly nice, Jack thought. The music started again. As people began to dance, Kama took Annie's hand. Sit and talk with us, she said. She and Baka led Jack and Annie to the edge of the clearing. They sat cross-legged in the grass. Kama picked up a wooden bowl. She held it out. Please eat, she said. Well, what is it? Asked Annie. It is poi, said Kama. She scooped some poi out of the bowl and licked it off of her fingers. You eat it with your hands? Cool, said Annie. She stuck her fingers in the bowl and licked off the poi. Good. Jack stuck his finger in the bowl too. The gooey mixture felt like peanut butter, but when he licked it off his finger, it had a weird taste, both bitter and sweet. He said, but he made a face. He doesn't like it, Kama said to Baka. No, said Jack. He tried to think of something polite. It's very interesting. Kama and Baka giggled. Then they stuck their fingers in the bowl and ate some poi. Interesting, they exclaimed. They cracked up laughing. Jack and Annie laughed with them. Now, tell us about your home over the mountains, said Kama. This place you call Frog... Kama's friend smiled. Smile made Jack want to tell her the truth. It's actually called Frog Creek, he said. It's very far away, much further than just over the mountains. We traveled here in a magic treehouse. Kama's and Baka's eyes got huge. They smiled even bigger smiles than before. That sounds fun, said Kama. You are so lucky, said Baka. Jack and Annie laughed. Yeah, we are, said Jack. He felt great telling their new friends about the treehouse. He and Annie had never talked about it with their friends back home. Can you stay here tonight? Asked Kama. Jack shrugged. Sure, we can stay at least one night, he said. Kama hurried over to the pretty woman. They spoke together for a moment. Then Kama returned to Jack and Annie. Our mother invites you to sleep at our house, she said. Great, said Annie. Thanks. Jack and Annie stood up. In the gray twilight, they followed Kama and Baka through the village. They wove between small huts with steep roofs until Kama stopped in front of one. This is our house, she said. The hut had no door, just a wide entrance that opened into one large room. Kama and Baka led Jack and Annie inside. In the dim light, Jack could barely see the dried grass walls and the woven grass mats on the dirt floor. Where do we sleep? He asked. Here, said Baka. He and Kama lay down the mats. Annie pulled off her lei and shoes. Then she lay down too. Oh, said Jack. Okay. He took off his shoes and wreath of flowers. He used his backpack as a pillow when he lay down. The warm wind rustled the palm leaves outside. Music drifted in from the party. The ocean is calling, said Kama. Jack could barely hear the waves in the distance. Tomorrow we will take you wave riding, said Baka. You mean surfing? Said Annie. Yes, said Kama. Cool, said Jack, but he wasn't sure he meant it. Surfing actually seemed pretty scary. Kama seemed to hear his thoughts. Don't worry, she said. We'll have fun. No kidding, said Annie. Soon Jack heard steady breathing. The other kids had fallen asleep. Oh, darn, we forgot to ask them about building a ship, he thought. I guess we'll have to do that tomorrow. Jack closed his eyes and yawned. Soon, too, he was fast asleep. All right, that's where we're going to stop for today. So chapter 4 is called Garden Paradise. We'll pick that up tomorrow. I hope that you're enjoying this book. And man, it would be so cool to be able to go to sleep to the sound of the ocean. Have you had trouble going to sleep at night? I have. I've not been able to sleep very good. But man, with all the rain and the sounds that nature make, I bet definitely they're going to be able to sleep good in Hawaii. All right, I hope y'all are doing well, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye.